Hello, and thank you for joining us for Vermont Film Essentials. My name is David Metzger.
I'm Devon Ewald.
Special guest, back again, Tim Bridge.
Was I supposed to say my name? Anyways, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Is this my fourth or fifth time on this show?
Fifth.
Ooh.
Right? Number 5.
Number 5. Mama, number 5.
No, I was when the list went out, I'm like, give you the choice to pick, but secretly I was like, please pick the master.
You knew what I was going to pick. You knew what I was going to do.
I did.
You snuck that one in there for me, you little freak. I love it.
But no, any excuse to talk about Paul Thomas Anderson is fine with me, and I chose this one just because it's, of all the films in his catalog, it's like this and Inherent Vice are like the most polarizing.
It's his favorite, though.
It is.
I was reading up on it a little
Yeah.
bit, and it is his favorite, and he says that he thinks that that won't change.
Yeah,
You know?
and I love his quote on it because he says something like, I don't think it's very successful, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
He goes, it feels right.
Yeah.
That's so great, man.
It does.
He's the coolest guy. Like, all throughout college, like he was just, of all the contemporary filmmakers, he was just the one writer-director that I just attached to.
I just
and
like
was just
everything
like,
he's done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We were
It's
talking
just-
about that before.
Where
Yeah.
you go over, I think, any contemporary filmmaker's filmography right now, I'm going to be able to pick one or two that I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, And I would probably do that about Inherent Vice a little bit, but
Little
it's
bit.
just, you know, but I understood it. I just didn't enjoy it.
I mean,
you
adapting
know?
Pynchon is, people don't do it.
People are like,
there's
you
a reason
can't do it.
Gravity's Rainbow isn't a movie, and Inherent Vice was kind of like him doing, oh, I'm going to do noir, so it's like more accessible, but still, it's not the type of approach that you usually adapt.
I read a thing about how the movie itself was like a marijuana high, where it's just like sort of hazy and just kind of like it goes up and down. And I was like, okay, sure, but I'm just trying to watch this movie,
Right.
not feel that. But,
Right.
But it's still, you know, got a lot to like about it.
And I
for
will
sure.
say, like, it made a run on HBO, and kind of like with this film, like the more I go back to it and the more I watch it, the more things I get out of it, and the more I grow to like it even more. Not that I would say it was his most perfect film, but
I like this
he just has
immediately.
so much.
I like this movie immediately because there's people who are like, I didn't like it at first, but the more I watch it, the more I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And then
me.
there's people who are like, oh, I didn't like it at all, and I'm never gonna like it.
I saw
with
the-
this one.
yeah.
I saw it in the theater
Yeah.
in college, and I was like, okay, I just witnessed a masterpiece. I just witnessed a masterpiece. Hey, how long? How far into the episode are we? All right, there we go.
I
Stamp that.
appreciated, like, the first time I saw it, I appreciated, like, so many parts of it, but I feel like it didn't quite come together as a whole for me, which was okay. But this time, it really was like every shot was perfect. Like, it was, composition-wise, it was put together so beautifully, and not to mention it was just an acting, just like tutorial on
It's
how to become a character.
Goodness gracious! It's like 3 people at the top of their game.
Yeah,
3
really.
leads in this are just at the top of their game
Incredible.
in terms of what they're.
And
You
three
believe
much
it every
different,
month.
3 much different types of performances, where it's really cool to watch them all work together because it's very different.
Yeah, I think Joaquin Phoenix's performance in this movie is maybe one of the single greatest performances in any movie ever. It's just the way he carries himself. Just
There's a
physical.
reason the first note I wrote down was Phoenix's physicality, because it's the first thing you notice in the film, and it sets the tone for the entire film.
Yeah.
And it's everything. It's the way he, like, his jaw, the way he speaks,
His
the
lip.
way, like,
His
like
lip.
everything
The way he
about it.
processes information too. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And I remember being in the theater and just feeling this level of discomfort because I had no idea what he was going to do in any given scene. Like, there are moments where he'd be like, I think it's the scene when he takes the pamphlet away from the guy, and he's kind of dancing around him, and I'm like, he's going to go ballistic. Like, something bad is terrible. It's going to go wrong.
It actually makes me excited for the Joker movie
Yeah.
because of like watching this again. I'm like, oh, he really does have a lot of that unpredictable energy that could lend itself well to that role.
For sure. I mean, he's excellent in everything that he does because he just immerses himself in it and he really sees it as a craft. And I think the reason that he was not as recognized by the Academy or whatever, or any award shows, is because I think this is his first film post his weird
and he was nominated,
thing.
right? But
he was nominated.
Yeah,
but he was like actively, taking the piss out of the Academy. I mean, like, it's not real. It doesn't mean anything. It's all bought and paid for. So if I win or I don't or I get nominated, I truly don't care.
Did he win for Walk the Line? He won.
I think
for that,
so,
right?
because I think that he was a part of an Oscar
but
campaign.
I feel like
that.
even with that, he never really seems to get placed on the upper echelon of method actors with like Daniel Day-Lewis and Christian Bale being like the president and vice president of that. And I feel like he never, I feel like he doesn't really get, it's like, oh yeah, and Joaquin Phoenix. Like, he's like that guy that people know is that great, but I feel like something like this truly like confirms it.
It's insane the way that like every scene with him is. It's like you were talking about, the unpredictability of his character, because you see him lose it in so many different ways, and just the depth of his character. Like, he's a traumatized World War II veteran. He's a virgin who's obsessed with sex and sexuality, trying to figure his way through that. He's a violent alcoholic who's getting drunk off of fuel, like just siphoning fuel to feel any kind of something.
I mean, he's unhinged, and the whole film is just a further unraveling, and just the fact that Phillip Seymour Hoffman's character is unraveling in much the same way, but it's like disguised, is like really what makes the fusion of their personalities such like a prevalent kind of theme.
And I love the way that it is a very veiled love story.
I literally zoom in. I just wrote down the word love story because I was about to bring that in.
Because
I mean, when Joaquin Phoenix is, how did you find me? Like, the way he says, how did you find me, when he's in the movie theater, whether that's supposed to be real or not, or in a dream, but still it's a segment of their...
It's his psyche. It's what he wants. He wants to be wanted by him.
Right.
Because that's why he sticks around. That's why he keeps coming back.
And it gratifies
it's the only place
something in Dodd's ego, too. It's just this,
And watching it again, I was able to see how that love story aspect of the film that kind of hits you by surprise, how he sets it up right from the jump, because there's just this wonderful shot of Joaquin Phoenix. He's walking down the pier, and it's on him as tracking along with him as he's walking, and then you see the boat behind him, and it Matt zooms to, rack focuses from him walking to the boat, and it's Phillip Seymour Hoffman and his daughter dancing, and he's watching him, and it keeps racking focus back and forth. And in that moment, I was like, oh, he's such a great visual storyteller.
It's the meet cute or whatever. Yeah. That's like the love at first sight sort of moment. And then in this very bizarre love story.
Right. Yeah. And the next thing that happens, like, you don't see anything that happens between him getting onto the boat or sneaking onto the boat, and then the next thing you know, he's waking up from whatever drunken stupor he's in, and then Phillip Seymour Hoffman is just there and just appears.
Yeah.
And it's just a wonderful impressionistic. It's his most impressionistic film, but it's just an impressionistic way of just saying like I'm under the spell of your.
Well, I mean, there's this other shot where. It's the scene where the other family members are, Freddie's still in prison, and the other family members are trying to basically, convince Lancaster to abandon ship with this guy. And they keep going to that one shot of Dodd, and he's sitting there. Everything in front of him is out of focus, except for him. I mean, it just shows, and it's from their perspective. It's just so brilliant. It's like, oh, he's clearly the focal point. They don't see anything else. It's
Well, he's it. That's a cult. That's like
Right,
a cult. That's
right.
a
But
cult
to
leader,
visually to decide to
That's what-
visually
yeah, that's what makes
superimpose
him
that
so
over
good.
the fabric of the film is what makes him that
He's just really good. There's just moments. He's just moments in this where I'm just like, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good. Each scene that progresses, and I think a lot of the criticism for this movie comes sort of directly from it being, and this is why I've watched it a couple times. I think you do need to watch it a couple times. It is a confusingly edited film, and I think purposefully so. Where the first time you watch it, you're not. I didn't really get a grasp on the narrative or like where things were in time from time to time. But it's so. It's extraordinarily put together. I was reading a bit about it in the past, and it makes sense that it does have that sort of fragmented feel to it, where there's not like a driving force or a narrative through line. It's really just like this is what happens with these characters in their life.
Right.
Where he apparently wrote it just in chunks as like scenes, as like ideas
Before he
of
really knew
scenes
which
that he
direction
had.
it was gonna
Before
take,
he knew what he was going to do with the movie, he would write scenes, and that works. I mean, he's done that in like more famously like Magnolia or Boogie Nights, where there's just these scenes, like focal points of the movie, and not really that narrative driving through line that you see in a traditional story.
that's that Altman kind of like influence.
Where he's just like, I'm just gonna throw all this stuff together.
I mean,
and
when
it's gonna
people
make
are that
sense.
good at crafting dialogue, sometimes you just don't care if it's a series of vignettes and it's loosely connected. But the fact that he did kind of find a way to bring it all together is really cool.
What I wanted to bring to the discussion first and foremost, upon watching it again, is a specific 10-minute period in the film, and I looked at the time frames on my Netflix, because it is on Netflix. I was surprised at that.
What?
Yeah, are you? What?
It was on Amazon Prime before, and then it wasn't. And
It's
then
on-
I thought,
it's on
well,
Netflix.
it's only on one streaming platform at a time. Like that's just kind of what I thought, because it's very rare that you find the same movie on multiple platforms.
But it's there. It's right there. I was like, oh, great, I can watch it. And there's a 10-minute sequence, and it's right when Freddy gets out of jail and rejoins the cult. And it's a 10-minute montage, but it's just elongated. You know, where in another filmmaker it jumps between I think 3 specific scenes, which is him walking back and forth and touching the wall in the window, him sitting across from Rami Malek's character and doing that exercise, and then his third exercise with Amy Adams, which is the direct view. And the fact that it's 3 different distinct shot compositions, where one is like a panning shot of him moving back and forth, one is a more traditional your setup here, where it's shot of the 3 of us, shot of you for the Rami Malek sequence, and then just straight on shot and then reverse straight on shot with the Amy Adams thing. And it goes through that for 10 minutes. It does that. And that is incredible. That's unbelievable to me. How he is able to craft that, because he's mostly known for his long takes. When he gets praise, it's for, he says action, full, insanely well acted and well crafted scene, cut, that's it. And you see that a lot in There Will Be Blood. You see that a bunch of, like, the Boogie Night sequence through the party. He has very famous long take sequences, and there are a couple in this as well. But he's also a master of montage. He really knows how to throw things together, and I think you see that in Phantom Thread a couple times. But very specifically in this one, I don't think I've ever seen a montage that lasts more than like 3, maybe 4 minutes. And he does a 10-minute where I'm just that's the most gripping part of the movie. Besides the first. The processing. His first processing.
That's truly where they begin to manipulate him and completely psychologically affect his life.
Yeah.
To the point where in a later scene, he is doing that thing where he walks back and forth as part of his general nature.
Yeah.
He's like, that's like a thing that he now does.
Yeah.
And that is truly unsettling, man. It's really, really becomes this thing of this, like of just the things that are done to this person.
And as you were saying that, because I didn't even realize that that was a full 10-minute sequence.
Yeah.
But knowing that now, because I think that's the one part of the movie where I feel like he's just saying, like, if you're going to be on board with this movie, you're going to have to get through this.
Yeah.
And if you can't get through this, then you're probably not going to like the rest of this
And it's
film.
a lot. It's like,
Yeah.
it's where they're bombarding him. They're like, it's a test. It's the final test of, is this guy really going to
But
be a part of this?
They put him through more than other people.
Sure.
They
No,
are taking
intentionally.
advantage of who he is. They are literally like, they see a fragile, vulnerable nature, and they are exploiting it to the fullest maximum.
Well, they're propping him up, and that's what I love, is one of the few shots that in that montage deviates from the traditional things they were doing is when Freddy's doing the back and forth thing, and then there's a shot of Philip Seymour Hoffman's character Dodd outside, sitting and enjoying lunch with everyone, and it's just shot like you can barely see him through like the curtain. And he just occasionally he's just enjoying lunch, and he's just like, again, Freddy, back to the other wall.
And it almost sounds like, whether this is real or not, but Freddy's actually starting to have some like Huxley-esque like breakthroughs of like actually like reaching into these primeval parts of the past. And Lancaster's not even in the room for it.
But that's what, that's what is so affecting about the way that this is written. That's what's so affecting about cults in general. That's what's so effective about hypnosis and Scientology. If this movie is about but not about Scientology, is its ability to make you feel like it's working. To make you, where through the first processing scene, he feels really good after it.
Well, and there are things that Lancaster says that don't sound unreasonable. That's the thing. He says you are not controlled by you are not ruled by your emotions. Things that are like positive.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that makes sense. And then it's like, that could be helpful. But then it's like, well, yeah.
But it's a breakdown and a psychosis, and as soon as he's challenged in any way, he loses it. He has his Freddy moments throughout the movie.
There is a shot where, it's right before he makes the speech after the second book is written, and they're all waiting for him, and it like moves on to where he's like sitting and kind of preparing his notes, and he gets up, and the shot doesn't like follow him up to give him light at all. It keeps his face in the dark, and it just was this really cool way to externalize how much he doesn't have the answers.
Yeah.
Like, he's in the dark. He's literally in the dark before he goes out to talk to these people. And then what follows is just bluffing.
Yeah.
So it was just a really cool like way to establish that.
Well, everything in this movie is, because it is Freddy's story. And that's what I really appreciated about it this time, from a narrative standpoint, was just how Dodd had to be right. For a certain length of time in this movie, he had to be right. And if he wasn't right, if anything got even remotely challenged, Freddy had an act out.
Right.
Freddy had a jump off, where one such instance is the obvious one in the party, where the guy stands, excuse me, which that's very funny. It's also very darkly comic.
And how many times
the movie.
Hoffman like ignores him with like a barely discernible awareness, like where like you can see it, but he's not like
you can see how bothered he is. Like the moments where he's bothered, the moments where he's confident, and then the moments where he's bothered. It's just such a like a little like you don't do this to me, but it's underneath the surface, and then it'll occasionally jump out. But like Freddy famously throws like a tomato or like a fruit or something at him.
Yeah.
And then when Jesse Plemons' character, who plays Dodd's son, is like, he's making this all up. Right. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm awake or asleep for half of it. It's going to be different next week. It doesn't matter what's happening. And then Joaquin Phoenix goes up and is just like, come here, say something to me, you know? You know, say F you or whatever.
Say this, be a man.
Yeah, be a man. Say that, you know, because if Dodd is challenged, then that means any of the progress that he feels he's made about himself as a character, that's out the window.
And the sequence of storytelling is so effective because when Freddy first encounters Dodd, it's like a mystical figure. Like, he's truly enraptured. Like, there's the scene when Dodd is talking to all the people, that he's just looking at him kind of, and yeah, he's drunk.
And he laughs a couple
he's
times.
really kind of like, he's taken with this guy. He really is like, man, this guy really seems to have it all figured out. Right?
Well, what I love about that scene is, I hate to keep jumping on David, but what I love about that scene is he's laughing at the wrong moments. Where everyone else is laughing during certain parts, he's laughing at a different moment. And that places him in a disconnect. And it makes him relatable despite being so unrelatable of a character, if that makes any kind of sense. I find myself relating to him a bit more, like as having an empathy for him and a sympathy to his character a lot more. Where in the first couple times I watched him, it was just like, oh, this guy's crazy. This guy has had a lot going on and is a nutbag. Where this one, it's just like, no, he's a traumatized war veteran who never got his footing and just became what he is now.
Right. And I think like you saying that, recognizing that it is Freddy's story is a great way on a rewatch to kind of just rethink the whole movie and almost experience a whole new movie, because I think, speaking for myself, like I got frustrated when I was in the theater at probably like within the third act, because at a certain point it just kind of goes adrift.
Where
feels like it's kind of like, oh, I thought I had a feel on this story, but now I don't, and I don't know what's happening, and I kind of, this was the first time in his filmography where I walked out of the theater and I'm like, oh, I'm not sure.
Well, it's the turning point's the motorcycle.
Yes.
Oh, that scene is amazing.
But I knew that there was enough things in it that I liked, and that I liked him so much that I'm like, well, it's on me then.
What I get wrong.
Yeah.
Not what did he get wrong.
Right.
Can't be him. It's gotta be
I have to shut
me.
something off.
Right. I'm the idiot here.
But on that rewatch, like I think that the first 10 to 15 minutes, where it really is showing you what he is going through and what he's been through in terms of like the war.
Master of montage. You know, it's wordless in a lot of ways.
Yes. And I think watching the movie the first time, I think it's easy to forget that 10-minute sequence where you know, he is, not only is he unhinged, it's not just that he's a lunatic. It's that he's been through some stuff.
Yeah.
He's seen a lot of horrors. And I liked that there was an interview where he's like, we went back and forth about whether or not to show war footage or like a war
I'm glad
flashback.
they didn't. I think it was an interesting choice not to, because in a way you're like, oh, this guy's crazy and he's always been crazy. Not really. He hasn't really always been crazy. There's one flashback, sort of pre-war flashback, or maybe it's not pre-war, or it's like him talking to the 16-year-old girl.
Is it Doris?
Doris, yeah. That's post-war still, right? Or is that pre?
That's before he goes off.
That's before he goes off. And he's just kind of affable and like
he does
dark.
He does have a charm to him, and I think that's what makes him such a complex character, is that he can be very overtly socially unacceptable, or he can be the guy who charms the girl.
Yeah.
Like when he works at the department store, I mean, he's got that girl like interested in him.
Yeah.
Until he ends up causing that fight, which is unbelievable.
It's hot.
That sequence is so real.
It's very.
It felt like a fight
I'm
you
starting
actually
to sweat.
And
It's
the
really
way
fun.
the way he's just goading that guy on, just like kind of
Just trying to, hey, calm down. Just trying to get the lighting right. Just trying to get the lighting right. Whoa. It's great. It's really good, but it's so, and it's funny. It's darkly comic, but you feel for the guy because, and it's so smart to not play the war footage, because any kind of movie can be like, look at all the limbs that he saw get blown off.
Right.
Whoa, this guy.
And he said that it's like when Joaquin Phoenix showed up and he saw what he was doing, it's like all you have to do is look at his face and look at the way, like, just look at the way he is, and that's enough.
Ooh,
like
his,
you know that he's.
This is the best lip acting I've ever seen in my life.
I think it is amazing. You said it before, but like 3 top-notch performances, and
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to Amy Adams.
and like the movie before. So There Will Be Blood. At a certain point, Paul Dano has to step back and be like, dude, it's your movie. You're the Titan. You're the monolithic performance that's gonna. So I'm stepping back, and I'm not gonna overplay. I'm not gonna, match you. They match each other. There's no point in this movie where it's like, oh, it's all Joaquin.
Who's got the upper hand, and you don't really know until that final scene in the end, where it's just like, oh, it's Amy Adams. Amy Adams is the master. That's who. That's what the title is referring to. Is the master? The master is Amy Adams, at least for Dodd.
Well, but then Dodd has that line about, we all have a master, and as soon as you find out how to not have one, you let us know. Because everyone has one. It just really
You'd
kind
be the
of
only
forces.
human.
Yeah, you'd be the only. Yeah, in history.
In history.
And it really forces you to kind of reevaluate what you were thinking about, or just to think about it differently.
Well, everyone has a master in a lot of different ways. I think the master. It's a beautifully titled film. I think because who is your master is a question throughout the whole movie. And I think that Freddy has multiple masters, whether it's his alcohol, or alcohol or sex or his own perverted sense of sex. He's just looking to find a practical master, and he stumbles into that with Dot. And I read a thing that Paul Thomas Anderson was in part inspired in this movie when he read that post-war peacetime is a huge time for religion and for religious establishments because you got a bunch of people coming back looking for purpose after they've seen
something to believe in.
Yeah, and you kind of get that in a scene in the very beginning where it's just showing different people who we don't see and we will never see again in this movie. It's just static shots of Marines' faces as you hear like a commanding officer say something along the lines of, you can go back, you can be mechanics, you can start your own, you can do whatever you want. But no, they can't. You're really glossing over the fact that this is a terrible time. And a lot of these men are trying to figure things out. And even more terrible
for his past.
He even has the line that says a lot of people will not understand your condition, your shameful, and will think it's a shameful condition, which really kind of, it lets you know that this is not just one person whose story we're following. This is kind of a microcosm of so many that came back affected by this unnatural, events that they experience.
That's another, just how great he is as a storyteller and as a writer, just that not only is it a film about religion, but it's also a film about post-war and the effects of that on a character.
I would say it's not even about religion in a sense.
More, yeah, just
because
somebody needing answers.
Yeah, someone seeking answers and finding it in some real BS, some real complete and total BS, but not complete and total BS because the guy, as the guy in the party says, he's like, it seems like what you just did was hypnosis.
Dodd's master is his own vanity. He is a slave to it. He gratifies his own ego, and that is his only. That's all. And the thing is, there are moments, and this is what's great about it, is the performances are so great because they're multidimensional. There are moments where you do relate to him.
Where you're like, this guy's, I get it.
You think he actually has compassion. There are moments he looks at Freddy like he really understands him or wants to understand him. But then it's just, then he ruins it. Because he's as psychotic as Freddy.
Yeah, he's as psychotic as Freddy. He can just hold it in better. He's still drinking his fuel drink. Like that was how he became. Yeah. They came to know each other.
Yeah.
He was like, hey, as long as you keep making that drink that you made last night, then I'll have a place for you here. And that drink that he made was fuel was like alcohol that he siphoned from fuel tanks.
Which was a Jason Robards. I feel like it's one of the Jason Robards stories because that was apparently one of the influences on the script was these stories Jason Robards told to Paul Thomas Anderson on the set of Magnolia about his time in the Navy or just drunken Navy stories.
Yeah, siphoning fuel just to feel something because it's terrible.
Yeah.
The whole thing about getting the, I don't even know what it is, the ethanol or whatever out of the missile
Right.
was from Jason Robards. And he also, guess there was a biography on John Steinbeck that he read that influenced him a little bit.
And parts of There Will Be Blood that didn't make it in, or the original draft of There Will Be Blood that didn't make it into that film.
I love there's a repeating shot throughout the film.
The ocean.
Of the ocean, of the trail. It's just
like
the
the first
trail
shot
of a
of the
ship.
film.
It's the first shot of the film, and then it's repeated, I think, 2 or 3 more times. I think
Twice,
two,
I think.
2 times, and but it's the trail of a boat. It's the back end of it. It's the wake of a boat's moving. How much do you guys know about L. Ron Hubbard?
I mean, a little bit. I've seen like the Going Clear documentary.
That guy is crazy, and the history of that guy is crazy.
Well,
and
he did have a hold. He really did have a hold over people.
Yeah.
The way that this guy did.
And he took to the seas. He lived on the seas
Right.
with people for so long. And so that's what, a lot of people, I think Paul Thomas Anderson and then other members of the crew kind of tried to distance Scientology and the influence of L. Ron Hubbard to from the film because I think he wanted to make it its own thing and not be like, this is the Scientology story or whatever, because he was making so much more than that, as we've talked about. But they don't even do the half of what this guy is doing. If you look at if you look at the history of L. Ron Hubbard, the guy is certified crazy, and certified was just like a sexual deviant. It's almost like if you put Freddie and Dodd together, that's what L. Ron Hubbard was. Is he was a often violent and like erratic man who was a drunk who would take people out to the ocean and have his way with them, both sexually and in their minds, who was just like, I am the ultimate everything of the whole world. The world revolves around what I
I feel
say.
like people were apologists for him that believed in him because they thought, well, this is just what he needs to do in order to be able to like be the person he is and have the, as this savior.
Well, I love that Paul Thomas Anderson showed this movie to Tom Cruise.
Right.
I did read a little thing on
Yeah,
that,
same here.
where he showed it to Tom Cruise.
And Cruise didn't like.
The
part
scene
about the Jesse Plemons character.
where Jesse Plemons was like, he's making it all up as he's going along.
Right.
But liked it otherwise.
Right.
But it makes me uncomfortable that he watched this movie and was just like, yeah, no, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's what Hubbard was like, for sure. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and that's why, like, I think, again, it's his most impressionistic film because, I mean, the whole movie is a question. Even the title is a question because it's who is the master. But I think anyone, you're seeing a different movie than what you're seeing and what I'm seeing and what Tom Cruise was seeing. Like it's whatever you bring to it that you're going to get out of it. And no way is Paul Thomas Anderson at any point saying like this is how I feel.
There's not an opinion on
Cruise, but he's not telling like this is evil. He's not making a judgment on anything. He's just like, these are the characters, these are what they're doing, and
I think the confrontation scene at the party is the only time that like an opinion of what's going on actually shines through. But they're not. But by having that guy come in and be like, if you're not willing to even have a rational discussion, and Paul and Dodd is just getting increasingly agitated and more angry, even though the guy is being very calm and simply asking questions and like leading it away, but he keeps spinning it and leading it away and getting more flustered until he gets to the best pig fuck, the best part of the movie.
he did it.
I had to say it.
All right.
And then the scene with Laura Dern. I mean, she's recognizing the moment where the changing of the wording is
Right, she has a
we're
valid
going
question.
in a wrong direction.
And someone who is actually confident about their movement and in command of it would not have responded in the way he
Yeah,
did.
she wasn't even asking that hard work. She was just like, "Oh, you changed the thing, but doesn't that like sort of change the philosophy?"
Right.
And his first answer was like, "We're widening we're broadening it to
Right.
get more, people involved in a wider scope of breaching into the past." And she's like, "Okay, but what?" And then he's just like, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
And it's what she wants is answers because
Right.
he's been, proselytizing himself. He's been like, I am a prophet, and what I say is law. And going into the past and time travel into our past selves is, And she's just that scene's great because we don't see Laura Dern's character again in the movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, did she just bail?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
that I could see her bailing hardcore on that after that moment. Like, oh no, he doesn't even know what he's talking about.
There's all these little things in it too, because I see that the name of the boat is Aletheia, and I look it up, and it's like, this Greek word meaning truth and unconcealedness, and then the state of not being hidden, and it's just so cool that it's like, oh well, I'm just gonna it's not like it's really like attention is brought to it. It's just this thing that he just makes sure that there's a scene where he's at the theater where when he gets the phone call and he hangs up, the cartoon then says 2 lines about X being the place where the sunken treasure is, and then the captain never leaves his ship.
Yeah.
And it's just like he even has the cartoon voices having to do with the thematic reality. Like it's just this
He's really,
attention
really
to
good
detail.
at making movies.
Yeah.
And everything has the cinematography.
It's wild.
His first time working without
70,
Ellsworth, too.
was it 70,
It's like
65 or 70
70
millimeters?
millimeter.
Yeah.
However he shot it.
And I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't one of the privileged that got to see it projected in 70 millimeter.
No.
Heard it was great, but
I don't think I
but yeah, and just those giant close-ups. And then I read an interview with the cinematographer, and it's like we use the 300 millimeter lens for those close-ups, and you feel that. Like they wanted to have that shallow depth of field where it's just face and all the detail, and then everything else is just blah.
Dude, there's a scene that felt right out of Tarkovsky where where they're chasing him when they think that he killed the guy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the door is pushed open, and all of us, it's dark, he's being chased, and then all of a sudden the door pushes open, and it's like a field filled with like the early light of the morning, and he's running across
He's
this
running,
field.
yeah.
It just was like,
That shot is
it's
is
so
really
jarring.
Good. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I mean,
Even the way, like, he had mentioned that, like, they're using 70 millimeter, and the closest thing to that is the VistaVision from Paramount, and movies like Vertigo and North by Northwest. And he looked at those, and there's shots in this movie where like they nailed the color, they nailed the look. That's one of them when he's running across the field. The whole opening stuff on the beach is like, I've never seen the sand look like that. I've never seen the green of the palm tree like that, and I've never seen the sky look like that. Like he's so great at nailing down what the looks of his films are going to be, and then experimenting in different ways. Like
Very
on the
blue
Phantom-
at points. Very blue at points. I think the costume design was excellent in this film. Just how
dude, there's one dress Amy Adams was wearing that was like this blue and white kind, where you just notice it. You can't help but be like, wow, like look at how distinct this is.
and it is like a Hitchcock level command of color, where even the green dress of the girl that he's trying to get with at the photo in the department store.
where she's walking around. That one long shot of her.
I just love the way the camera moves in the department store. Like it's really. Like
when he fights the guy and it just kind of starts, dollying to the left as it follows him leaving, and then smash cut. He's chopping lettuce in China. That's what makes it. It's a jarring film, and it is a challenging. It's a very challenging film.
Yes.
I will call it that. I won't call it like like strangely edited or anything like that, but it does challenge you in a sense of like trying to wrap your head around what's happening.
There's even a transition that feels like a Soderbergh transition, where the next moment is a like upright bass jazz part where they're in the elevator. It feels like that next moment in an Ocean's movie.
Oh,
It really did feel like that. I was like, wait, that was so interesting tone-wise to like go to that shot like with that music.
Well, it goes from that, and then it cuts to a static shot of Amy Adams from behind, like sitting. She's sitting, but she's looking behind her, and the camera is like looking at her from behind while she looks back. And Dodd's typing away on his typewriter, and she's just like, we need to go on the attack. That's what we need to do. We can't keep defending ourselves because will keep happening.
Reading that PTA apparently would have her come to scenes that she wasn't even in to just have her presence be there,
just to watch,
lets me know, lets the view know that like she is like the Lady Macbeth of this movie.
Yeah,
like it runs through her. She is the silent like conductor of this whole thing.
Well, it's amazing. Well, that's what that scene where she wakes him up in the middle of the night and gets him to quit boozing. It's so he's only doing it behind her back now. He's not doing it openly anymore. He's still doing it because he's, that's the only way he can feel anything. But the command that she has over him immediately, where you need a 6-minute processing scene for Dodd to get to Freddy. You're awake. Are you awake?
The specificity of her lines there, because I wrote it down, she says, I want you to place something in the future for yourself. It's there waiting for you. You can go get it whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
It's like very descriptive, and like you can imagine being woken up and having something that specific said to you that it could like really like...
And they laugh together, too.
Oh, yeah.
In that moment where she's like, I want you to place something in the future for me. And he kind of laughs, and she laughs with him. She's just so methodical.
Well, she's a sociopath. And that's the thing, is she's so good at being one.
Oh, that scene where the masturbation scene, or the hand job scene, where he's just at the mirror, and it's just from behind.
It's like it gets violent towards the end.
And then it's just one shot.
And it's about power, and it's about control.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it truly establishes the relationship.
That's the moment, because I'm in the movie theater seeing this for the first time. And I'm thinking of her as a side character, and I'm like, oh, Amy Adams is like third build here, and she's all over all the posters. What's the deal? She's only had like 2 speaking, lines in this, or scenes where she's focused at all in this whole movie. And then that scene happens, and you're like, okay, all right, because it is jarring. I mean, it's hard to watch just from a perspective of it being, an outright sexual scene. It being graphic, it happening so quickly and so suddenly, and the control that she has over his orgasm is, it's just like, wow, what?
There's also the ambiguity of what she's referring to, because they've just had that kind of freewheeling orgy kind of like where everyone's naked, right? And he's kind of going up to naked women and stuff. But there's that ambiguity of, is she talking about one of them, or is she talking about Freddy? Right?
You could do he's like, you can do anything you want as long as I don't find out about it.
Right.
As long as no one I know knows about it.
Right.
And you're like, oh, like, so that was a very interesting. That's such an interesting wording and such an interesting line, because it sounds like she's giving him freedom, but it's not. She has specific parameters for how he is to live his life, and you're like, oh, okay, she's
very subtle manipulation.
Yeah.
And it establishes how much he needs her too.
For sure.
If he didn't, then it wouldn't matter, right? So clearly, this is his master.
Yeah.
It's almost like the whole the cult and everything about, like, it's her idea, it's her plan.
He's just the vessel.
Yeah.
Right. He's the charismatic leader. She's not charismatic. She can't get people the way that he can.
Which is like when you said like they work on Freddy way more than it, that's her, because she sees what he's doing to him.
She wants to break him down and have him be a shell of his former self, because she's like, he can't be a part of this. Yeah. But since they are in love, since Dodd and Freddy are lovers without the sexuality, she needs to go about it in such a strange and manipulative way to like get him to stop boozing. But he's not going to ever stop boozing. He's just going to keep ruining things. He's just going to keep, which is interesting because she's like, we need to go on the attack, and then he goes on the attack a couple times, and it's not what you're supposed to do. And then that scene in the end where she's just like, this is a waste of he's a waste of time to have him here. And then she just gets it when she stands up.
Yeah, she made the decision for both of them.
She made the decision.
And then she's like, you can say your goodbyes, but this is done.
Yeah.
How painful is it when Freddie shows up at the school and it's that feeling of like, you used to be a part of this? And like, when he goes like, when she's like, are they expecting you? Or is he expecting you? He goes, should be. He goes, I took that picture.
Yeah.
Like, it's just really painful, man. It's really like, you can feel how fractured he is and how...
But there's at least a growth to him, I think, in that moment, in that scene, where he's like, or you can stay. And he's like, maybe in another life. And then that line from Hoffman where he says, if we meet in another life, you will be my mortal enemy.
Dude, how ridiculous is
and I will strike you. I will fight you at every, however it's worded. It's just so like bizarre,
diabolical,
and then he just starts singing at him. And it's just so strange, but so compelling. Yeah. Where I'm like, ugh.
I love his reaction to them saying they have a warrant for his arrest. Goody.
Goody. What for?
But how ridiculous is Dodd that he, when he goes into detail about how they met, and he goes, we successfully delivered 33 of 35 balloons. 2 balloons. It's like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
He is this just ridiculous character. Like, it's at that point, there's no way Freddie believes it. Like, it's just
in France.
He is
a
just
siege by the Russians.
it's laughable. And at that point, he has become a comic character because this is just like, no, we know that
you switch you switch it, because in the beginning, I mean, it's just such a fascinating breakdown of the characters throughout the film. Is he's seeding Hoffman's demise or Hoffman's fall, which isn't even a fall. Like, in the end, he's created. It's the beginning of Scientology. I mean, that's where Hubbard got his footing after he was wanted in America for lying to people and, professing to be a doctor and to be able to heal people of their past ailments. So he went to England and he set up shop there, and they let him boo England, but it parallels Hubbard's life. And then, but I love the way that he seeds his downfall to, like you say, we're in that final scene. It's comical. It's funny. You're like, wow, what a truly pathetic man. And he's still speaking with that confidence, but it's not all there in the way that you saw him in the beginning.
Right.
It's just wild.
And that in and of itself is why we are watching the movie through Freddie and why it's his story, because you have to feel that, right? You have to feel the way Freddie is feeling listening to him. I'm not buying your BS anymore.
And like you said, Freddie has room for growth. Like, it doesn't really feel like Lancaster does. It seems like he's still spinning the same old story, where Freddie's different. Freddie does have a different vibe to him. And she tries to shame him. Yeah. Be like, no, you're as drunk as you ever were. You haven't changed one bit. And he kind of deals with it gracefully, I feel like.
The scenes after that whole confrontation with him in the bar, and then with the woman, and then with them in bed, it just has such an otherworldly quality to it.
It's like from a separate. It almost feels like it's from a separate film.
And it feels like a whole different
Well, it's like that Taxi Driver ending. It's like basically like allowing your anti-hero to like have this kind of like charmed like moment where like they are charming and they are,
And that he's able to laugh. He's able to make a joke out of like.
Because he doesn't have a master anymore. He's no longer seeking a master. He's free of that. And he's still drunk,
right.
But he had sex. Hey, he did it. That's what he's been so perversely seeking throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
And then
in the Rorschach tests in the beginning, where it's just like
such a great scene.
where he's just like, Looks like a cock, but it's upside down.
You know, we were talking about how PTA gave him free range to improvise, and you could sort of tell
that scene.
What are the improvisations. Like,
Yeah.
it really feels like the way he acted at the beach with the other soldier. Like, it just felt like there were times when he just
what
was
I
able to
love
go
about
off.
him on the beach with the other soldiers is there's that one moment where he's like, you know how to get rid of crabs? It's one of the first. It's the first line of the movie. It's the first line. You shave one of your nuts, and then they all go to the other one, and you light it on fire, and then you take an ice pick and you try and stab.
That had to have been an improvisation.
Right.
I feel like
But
that,
it solidifies the character, and people are laughing along with him, and then he starts, you know, fondling the sand woman that they make,
sex with it,
having
and
sex
then
with it,
masturbating
and then
into the ocean.
hard cut to him masturbating into the ocean, and it's just
And it's such a great because he just stops and he's just thinking, and he's just like,
like,
yeah, I gotta go.
yeah.
You know, there's this great double entendre when Freddie is first witnessing how they go about processing people, and he sort of when
Amy Adams says, "Do you understand what's going on?"
And then she says, "We record everything." She says it like we record everything that's ever happened to us.
Yeah.
But they're recording everything. And in fact, the next shot is showing that they record everything, and that actually is a big part of Scientology, is having dirt on people.
Yes, 100%.
So like it's this brilliant, like, and you know, having just like seen Us, it's like Jordan Peele is really awesome. But
took us an hour.
I know we're not going to say anything, no spoilers, but he's kind of overt with the symbolism. He's like, look at what I'm doing. It's so fun, and it's like, it's cool. But PTA is more like subtle about it. Like, it's really cool. It's like when you notice stuff, it's more incorporated into the film's fabric.
I think Jordan Peele's like 10th film. He'll be doing stuff. I think he'll be doing stuff like
it's
this.
very impressive that he is doing what he's doing. But like,
for sure.
there's a difference in the imposed symbolism. It's like PTA is really. And I don't even know if I feel like it's this specific film that had a lot of it because of the nature of it.
Well, I think there was so much to it, and that's why I think we could go for another 2 hours talking about this movie. We could say it's about the question isn't what is it about? What is this movie about? Because when I first saw it, I was like, that was amazing. I need to read a lot about it because I can't wrap my head around it this first watch. But it's not, you know, then some people say it's about acting, some people say it's about religion, some people say it's about finding something in post-war, some people say it's just bare bones about Scientology, some people say it's a character study, but it's all of those things. It's all of those things in one, and that's what's so impressive. And I think Joaquin Phoenix brought so much to the role of Freddy that you could talk about just him and his character for hours because it's just because he doesn't say stuff. He doesn't say anything in the movie that doesn't need to be said. I don't think there's exposition in this movie, and that's wild and that's radical and that makes the film very challenging to watch. But it's also allows the characters and the actors themselves to really to catalog everything. To say, this is what the movie is about. This is what is happening in the movie through whatever lines they're given, whatever improvisation they're allowed to do, and the shot composition. He's just like, I'm going to set up the camera like this, and it's going to look perfect, and it's going to look amazing. You guys do what you are amazing at. And he just picked
It's his trust.
the best of the
His
best.
trust in actors. I mean, I think he established himself very early on with films like Boogie Nights and Magnolia as just being a director that actors wanted to work for and work with because he cared so much about their performances.
Is Mark Wahlberg good in anything else? You
I
know?
mean,
I mean that's my opinion.
I hear you.
But
I hear you.
it's things like that where I mean these are three of the greatest actors. This movie made me miss Philip Seymour Hoffman so much.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's wild.
Saying what you did about how there's so much going on that you almost could just focus on Freddie's character, it made me think of Full Metal Jacket, because something about Vincent D'Onofrio's character, it makes it's a similar systemic breaking down of a person's psyche.
Yeah.
To the point where they had to have not been like what they end up being, there's no way they were like that before they entered the military complex, right?
Yeah.
So, but there is the ability to be unhinged, right? So it doesn't happen to everyone, right? That extreme of an unhinging, but.
Well, I do want to just, because I know we probably have to wrap up soon.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we should talk about the best scene in the movie, and because we haven't really touched on it, is that first processing scene. It's
I
like
took the most notes during that scene.
It's like I think it's on par with like a De Niro Pacino and Heat like diner scene where it's just two of the best ever sitting across from each other and just acting.
And I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, but in the theater, that scene, like my jaw is just like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe I'm witnessing.
I was watching this today.
This.
I was watching this today while like folding laundry and doing other things, and I stopped and I watched the full scene because it's hypnotic. It's hypnotic.
Yeah.
The movie itself is hypnotic.
Yes.
The movie itself is participating in the same thing that Dodd is doing to people, where it's like, and that a lot of Johnny Greenwood's score for the movie, which we haven't even mentioned until now. Score and lack of score. There's no score during this scene, and it needed to be
music
that way.
is used to establish mood so effectively throughout the film. But I wanted to say about that scene, the dialogue is delivered in like a Howard Hawks type way. Like it's not meant for comic relief. It's just more the timing. There's a timing to the delivery that is very like an element of like older Hollywood.
The amount of time it must have taken to rehearse that scene and to make it
when he
what
says,
it was.
do you like when he asks him if he cares about what people think of it, and he goes, I don't know what you mean. He goes, yes, you do. Like it's just these the way the responses are so well coordinated.
And the questions that he asks are pointed and speak on so much of I think the themes of the film. Where I think there was one question where he says, "Do you think God will save you from your own ridiculously?" And that's a weird question. Like throughout all of it, it was like direct questions, just like, "Have you ever done this? Do you ever feel this way? Is this a thing from your past?" But that one is do you believe that God will save you from your ridiculousness? And then he doesn't repeat it. When he does it over again, he just says, "Do you think God will save you?" But it's already implied there. He's already hit that mark. It's one of the it's amazingly written, the scene.
In a way,
I think we can't take away from that.
No.
Like it is two actors at the top of their game,
but it's
doing
facilitated
the best scene.
by great
But
dialogue.
it's facilitated by such great dialogue.
In a way, is this not very directly referencing Clockwork Orange as well? I mean, think about Alex and what he represents and just the kind of deviant behavior and socially unacceptable behavior, but he can be charming and he can be this and that. And think about his processing. Think about the unwanted imagery that is forcibly projected into his psyche.
Yeah.
Like,
and his childishness, the fact that he farts during it, and he just starts laughing.
God,
He's like,
I wrote Freddie's fart when asked if he's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Like, it's brilliant. And actually, that may be the most fondness they've had for each other after that happens, because he looks at him like he's a boy.
Yeah.
Well, I also love the way that it's shot. Is it doesn't pull from Freddie until he like breaks. I think it's like there's a break, and then it goes back to Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then they get back into questioning, and it's just on Freddie. Static shot of Freddie. Have you ever done this? No. Have you ever done this? Yeah. And you see him like being manipulated, but also the honesty of him. I think the question, do you think God will save you from your own ridiculousness? And he says no. And that's the first time that he tells the truth, like throughout the whole, in the questioning. And then from then on, it's just delving into more and more truth.
I mean, what do you think's going on with the pick a point scene? Because it really is just it's probably the most jarring scene in the film for me, because there's a scene where Philip Seymour Hoffman says like, he's going really fast.
Yeah.
And then he goes, like, it says something about it being
good boy.
really good. Yeah,
good boy.
Like,
and
but
it's
then
all
he
about
gets too far.
Right. It's about control. Like, I can't control him. And man, do I wish I was that free.
Yeah.
There is an admiration, in that scene.
Good boy, he says. Good boy. Like an animal. Like, because he's an animal to him. Because, you know, human beings are not animals.
Right.
We are not animals.
We sit far above that crowd. Yeah.
It's just so well written, and it's Hoffman is just incredible in it.
I will second what
Amy
you said
Adams.
about missing Phillip Seymour Hoffman, because he took more chances than a lot of actors in his moments. He really just did. There's something about how the risks he took as an actor that was very much his own thing.
Yeah. Wild stuff. I don't know. Wild stuff here. Wow.
I wasn't going to do this, but I'm sorry if this gets long-winded, because his films, like they just, like, I love that more than any other contemporary filmmaker that I love. I feel like you get to grow with him, and he has grown as a filmmaker over the course of these films. And I remember in high school with my friends watching Boogie Nights, and then the scene in the donut shop where Don Cheadle gets the blood in the face, and us just go, "Ah!" like crazy moment. The Alfred Molina scene in Boogie Nights.
There aren't really crazy moments in this. Like he doesn't have to rely on that.
When I used to watch Magnolia with someone who'd never seen it, I would always just wait for their reaction when the frog started to fall from the sky. Like, just because it's so unexpected that you just vicariously experience it through other people when you're just like, oh man, you have no idea what's about to happen.
And then Punch Drunk Love was the one moment where it's like, oh, he's at a different, he's fine, it's not like his other films at all. There's moments where you're watching it where you're like, I don't even know what the hell I'm watching.
I mean, look how he directed Adam Sandler. Look at the performance he got from Adam Sandler.
More than any other filmmaker, I'd say.
Well,
so,
I don't know. I think.
Well,
I'm not saying he's never.
I think whoever did Grown Ups 2.
I can't believe I didn't see a joke behind that door opening.
Come on, man!
Oh, man.
I was right there. It was right there. I've been so serious this
you
whole
are the
time.
master of the joke. I did not see that coming.
I am the master.
But after seeing this movie, so I took to the Facebook universe.
Okay.
Bold.
I know. I still haven't wrapped my head around what I've seen. The Master is beautiful, haunting, strange, hallucinatory, intense, challenging, and somewhat frustrating. It's not like There Will Be Blood, where I leave the theater speechless because I know I have seen a bona fide, unique masterpiece. For the first time in a long time, I left the theater speechless because I'm not sure how to describe or feel about it, which is not necessarily a bad thing. A few things I do know for sure upon first viewing is that the acting is exemplary. Joaquin is electrifying, a full-bodied, animalistic, unpredictable performance. The way he stands, walks, speaks, everything about him. There are scenes between he and Phillip Seymour Hoffman that I have still not been able to shake. One of them being the processing scene, of course. The photography
hugging and wrestling on the ground, the homoeroticism of that.
The jail scene.
Yeah, the jail scene. When he's just banging his head.
And he breaks the toilet.
Oh, just like Walk the Line when he rips the sink off. I would say it's 2 movies where he rips bathroom furniture off walls.
The photography is dynamic. I was not fortunate enough to see it projected in 70mm, but I can only imagine how jaw-dropping that experience must have been. There are moments when I felt like I was watching a 50s film like East of Eden or Vertigo. They nailed that look and feeling. Bottom line, see the film. Paul Thomas Anderson is my favorite American filmmaker working today, and his ambition and daring should be commended and supported no matter how you feel about his films. I will see The Master again. As of right now, the acting, photography, craft of the film are all mesmerizing. The story, however, seemed to leave me adrift in the final act. Perhaps that was the point, and a second viewing will help.
That was your Facebook response to having seen the film the first time?
And I do think that, going back to see it again, I think it is, out of all of his films, his most impressionistic, and I think it's the one film that I think we still will be talking about.
Because maybe there's the most to find. I think it's the reason you keep going back to The Shining, because it's it seems like it's one thing, and really it's full of all these mini kind of worlds. Because
I didn't get that the first time I saw it. I didn't get Vertigo the first time I saw it. I didn't get.
I still don't get Vertigo.
Why is it so green? I love that.
I know why it's so green.
But then the final shot. We'll be talking about that final shot and what it means.
Oh yeah, him on the beach.
Yeah.
Laying on the sand woman. the breast in half the shot and his buried face in the other half. I think it's because
He's finally found his piece. But what is that piece, and what is that?
That piece is a great pair of boobies. I don't know.
Walked right into it.
No, but in a broader sense, it was him. It was a guy who was obsessed with sex, finally having sex, and he gets that piece. He has that piece where it's no longer perversion, where he sees it as a human experience. But even through that, he's still trying to do the same, the processing thing with her.
I know.
While she's on top of him.
But I always saw that because he is joking.
It was kind of
and
tongue
it's
in
just
cheek.
like,
Yeah, of
oh,
course.
let me like,
And then he says, "You're the bravest girl I've ever met."
Yeah.
Like a complete flip, but yeah.
We could just keep
It's a
talking about
masterful film.
Masterful. Full of masters. It's
right.
full of masters.
It is.
It's.
I went into this thinking it was going to be about a golf tournament.
Right. Who wouldn't?
And I was disappointed, to say the least. Where's Phil Mickelson? Is he a golfer? He's a golfer, right?
Yes.
Phillip Seymour Mickelson.
Phillip Seymour
Is
Mickelson.
a golfer.
This is a rare 5-star rating for you, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this is a 5-star movie. I love it so much. I think it's excellent. I think, I don't know, who am I to disagree with Paul Thomas Anderson? You know, this is his favorite movie that he's made. It is challenging, and I can absolutely, you know, if I'm introducing people to Paul Thomas Anderson, if I'm saying, oh, you haven't seen a PTA film, well, don't watch The Master first. Do not. I would recommend his.
What would be yours?
For first one to see, probably Boogie Nights. Yeah, probably see Boogie Nights first because that's the most sort of. I think it's accessible on top of it being really, really well made. But this is my favorite. I think this is my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie, where I can be up and down on other ones, but completely in awe of him as a filmmaker. This one is just a cut above. I think the acting really takes it above anything else that I've ever seen. Where every movie that he makes, I'm gonna love it because it's really well put together. Yeah. The performances in this are insanely good, just so engrossing and so much behind it. And I can't recommend it enough if you can stomach a little bit of a confusing narrative.
Well, it's hard because I feel like he is about to, if he hasn't already reached that kind of Kubrick level standing where there's people who absolutely love Kubrick, and then there's people who don't get it and hate him.
Oh, yeah. I love Kubrick, but there's a couple of his movies that I'm not super fond of, you know?
But then, like, you turn into, like, I always compare him, like, he's like Radiohead. And if you're having a conversation with someone who doesn't like Radiohead, you sound like, you can't help but sound like a crazy lunatic because you're just like, why can't you see the genius that is then?
You know, there's some critical quotes I just wanted to, I didn't know if they would come up, but it's just kind of like, kind of put things in words that I maybe couldn't flesh out. But it's like, at times intentionally opaque, as if its creator didn't want us to see all the way into its heart of darkness, which I like the heart of darkness reference because he is like Kurtz, and there is a boat that's you know, and there are so many elements of where people become just obsessed with this one person who is mad, and people don't, and the one who, I don't know, just the way Phoenix comes into his orbit, it kind of feels like how the Martin Sheen, I can't help but go Apocalypse Now with it, but like the way he became mad himself and kind of, but the other one is how the movie's deliberately misshapen, and I just love the way that's just describes it as well, because it's not, it doesn't try to be perfect in its storytelling structure. It really is kind of unhinged, but it's about the experience of it all. And
you gotta be someone who's taking it in, and if you like plot, don't you know?
If that's your
no,
and
steer clear.
That's
just
one of the
watch
reasons.
the scenes on YouTube. Like go to YouTube and search, you know, the processing scene, and be in awe of that.
That's one of the reasons why I chose this one is because, kind of like with AI and a couple movies that we've done, where it's polarizing, or it's a movie that revels in its imperfections, and those imperfections only make it, you know, with each viewing, become more just engrossing. You can't help but want to go back and see it again and again. And
I'm not bored by it, but I can see people being bored by it. Like, if you don't like The Master, you know, I'm not going to argue with you. I think that it hits all those right notes for me as like what I love about movies.
Well,
You guys.
I feel there are a handful of PTA's films that are in that realm, like Phantom Thread is one of them, where, you know, unless you really, if you aren't like a patient filmmaker or patient filmgoer, where you really are gonna like wait to like see those beats develop, then it's not for you. If you need the beats clearly defined for you, then it might not be.
There's just things in
right
this movie
fit.
that you're not going to see. That you're not going to see in any other movie. You're not going to see a 10-minute montage pulled off the way that he pulls it off. You're not going to see two actors going at it in such a brilliant way. You're not going to see dramatic shifts with the amyadams character coming in hard in the second half as the controlling aspect of everything. It's just really, it's a lot to take in, and it's a lot to talk about. And like I said, we could go another hour if we wanted to. But
I think it's the biggest testament to PTA's ability as far as his composition ability.
yeah, the shot composition in this movie is insanely
if you look
good.
at storytelling as just in film as just composing shots.
Well,
it really
that's what
does
his
accomplish
montage. That's why
the
his
most,
montage
right?
is so amazing. His ability, you know, like in the two montages that you that I pick up on are the 10 minutes in like the beginning of the second half of the movie, and then the 10 minutes of him on the beach or however long that sequence is to start. And every shot in that is so well put together. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. The shot on top, the famous shot that I think we used as the Instagram photo is him lying on top of passed out, drunk on top of the boat. It's just really cool. Like, on top of it having a depth to it that you can talk about for so long, it's just really cool at parts.
To watch.
And that's part of his evolution as a filmmaker, as I see it, is like, his films have always looked great, but in his like first 2 or 3 films, he's grown so much as a visual. He was always a great visual stylist, but then he grew as like a formal visual storyteller.
He didn't used to be great at cutting the fat off his films, and they were so good. The dialogue was so good that you didn't really care. It's sort of like we talked about with Killing of a Chinese Bookie. You're either a fan or you're not of leaving that much like kind of fat in there to like absorb. But it's like with this, it's like clearly he got better. He's a more defined.
He's the only one who
sculptor.
could have made this movie.
I agree with that.
Seeing this movie in the hands of even other filmmakers that I respect, like a Christopher Nolan or something like
it's
that,
his
it
knack
would have
for
been
atmosphere.
like ridiculous.
That's what it is. He creates such potent atmospheres.
He's willing to let one scene be totally silent, and he's willing to let another scene be overcome with noise and music. And there is a lot of music in this. It cuts. Whether it's the score by Johnny Greenwood or it's an old jazz standard or an old I don't even know how to describe the type of music that he sings multiple times in the movie that relays over a scene or two in the movie. He just knows what to do to evoke the emotions that he wants in any given scene, and it's really good. And
There is
I
a
really
certain
like
rhythm to his filmmaking that's not unlike music, that like of his understanding of what to do in certain scenes.
That's why I love Greenwood. I wish Greenwood was more acknowledged by like the Academy for his the last, I think 3. He did the last 3.
How he didn't win for Phantom Thread.
He didn't get a nomination for this at all. He didn't get a nomination for this. He got nominations for Phantom Thread and for There Will Be Blood, but he didn't win for them.
No, There Will Be Blood, a technicality because he used old.
He wasn't allowed to be nominated.
So he was disqualified because
Because he used a piece of score that he had already used in another short film.
Jeez.
It's just
Boo.
like, yeah.
Boo, Academy, boo. Joaquin Phoenix is right about the Academy. All right, it is nonsense, and it doesn't matter because this movie is insane and incredible, and it's on a lot of it's
It
number
should have
one
been
on a lot of
nominated
the
for
AV
Best
clubs.
Picture. That was definitely an
I
oversight.
think an AV Club did the best movies of the 2000s, and it was number one.
Yeah.
After Pete Travers, Rolling
was
Stone
number
had
one.
it in
Yeah.
number one
Yep.
as in his list. So it's recognized in the sense that it
doesn't
is well
surprise me that
respected,
that it was left out of the conversation because it's such a cerebral, poetic film.
But it did only get 3 nominations for the 3 acting roles.
Right.
It didn't get a Best Director nod. It didn't get a
Best
cinematography
best
nod.
screenplay. Yeah.
It didn't get a cinematography. This
Yeah.
movie not getting a cinematography nod
that's-
is all you need to know
usually
about
that's where you can
the
take the
Academy.
art house film and find a home for it.
I mean, I would say that you can look at this film and the Academy and see that the Academy is nonsense. But I think all you need to do to see that the Academy is nonsense is watch this previous year's Academy Awards and how pathetic all of that was. Bohemian Rhapsody, best editing.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Yeah, and this film and Phantom Thread, which I feel like is slowly becoming not slowly, like just rapidly becoming my favorite PTA film.
I gotta watch it a second time. I haven't watched it a second time.
But
Phantom Thread.
with both films, like everything, every detail has a meaning. And it's crafted to such perfection, and the look of the film matches the mood and what you're supposed to take away with it so perfectly.
And just on my end, the comedy of it all. The comedy in his movies is, you're like, should I be laughing in a way? Like, and again, I'm going to reference Us, but nothing specific. Jordan Peele's Us. The comedy is so overt in that, where you know where to laugh, where you know. And in this one, you're like, am I supposed to laugh right now? Because it's kind of funny, but is it supposed to be super serious? But he's got that knack for. I mean, you get that in Phantom Thread too. Phantom Thread is a very funny movie.
Yes.
But it's not presented in such an obvious way. And I think that I really admire that. I really admire a film that's as haunting at times as this is, being able to find comedy in its haunting.
It's fun when films are like sneaky funny. Like you just can't. Yeah, and you just like laugh. It's more of an organic laugh because it's not telegraphed.
I mean, Joaquin Phoenix is funny in this movie.
The way he laughs after after he throws the food,
when he's just
and then it's just the way he reacts to people's reaction.
Yeah,
that's great. Which is like definitely like a kind of
or like
drunk kind of wry kind of like way of reacting. But it's like I love the kick that he gets out of his own behavior sometimes.
Or the way him and Rami Malek when
they're walking to go see
they walk to go see the guy. First of all, his posture in a lot of these scenes. When he stands the way he thinks people should stand, where he just has his hands like on his back just to make sure that his back is straight and he's not hunched over like an animal, where he's still pretending to be human in a lot of ways. He is animalistic in this, and it's obvious the animalistic themes were because it's spoken directly to him. You're an animal, and now you're acting like an animal right now.
Freddie, no.
Not now, not in this way.
And apparently, the Amy Adams reciting the 16th century pornography was on the day she's there, and he just goes go look online and find some old pornography and print it out and just read that and just did it right then.
I don't want to listen to this. The shot where her eyes turn black. And it's just for a moment. It doesn't linger on.
You almost think like, am I
crazy?
that?
Am I crazy? Did I just do that with my eyes?
Right.
Is Dodd correct? Should I go to the Church of Scientology? That's what I got out of this movie. I'm a Scientologist now. We can time travel into the past, into our past lives from trillions of years ago, with a T. I love that line where he says trillions and it's like, with a T.
With a T, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What are you guys up to?
Should we go drink? We're gonna drink?
God. Do you have any jet fuel mixed with orange juice? What was it?
What is in this? What is in this
And then
potion?
he says,
Potion, yeah.
How do you like to feel?
How do you like to feel?
I
Yeah.
love that question.
What's in that? Secrets.
Are you trying to
Yeah,
poison
yeah.
me? No, it's just like, is the drink that you gave me poison? Not if you drink it right, you know.
You're a scoundrel.
Not if you drink it smart. That was the line. Not if you drink it smart. You're a scoundrel. How's that one? Great lip acting from Joaquin. Amy Adams is national treasure. Give her an Oscar
Already.
already. And he's got to watch the John Wick movies.
This is true.
You haven't?
Haven't seen a single one. Yeah.
This is an offshoot.
All right. Tim, thank you very much. Of
course, happy to
Always
have
a pleasure to have you
I can
here.
read that 16th century pornography directly to the camera now, right? Okay, so pull in on me.
All right, Paul Thomas Anderson. If you don't know him, figure him out. Watch all of his movies. Don't start with The Master. Start with Boogie Nights. Says Tim.
Work your way up. Just go
Just watch 'em all.
chronologically, you know?
Yeah. I
Just
think
go
that's a good way to go.
chronologically. You get to see his growth as a filmmaker.
Boogie Nights, Magnolia, jump back, figure out that he made a first movie called Hard Eight, then keep on going.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being
This
here.
is
man.
great. This was, once again, love being in the studio.
We'll have you back for 6.
Ooh. What will it be?
The 6th episode is always the best one.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
I've been
it's a
stumbling
saying.
through these 5, honestly. It's been a mess.
I don't know if I should tell him.
I am a scoundrel.
What's that?
The Samurai.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah. It's a gift.
I love that. That's my movie. That's the movie I love.
All right. I'm David Metzger.
I'm Devon Ewell.
I'm Tim Bridge. And
Thank
this
you.
has been The Movies.